established the wireless infrastructure. And in this infrastructure, each classroom would have the capacity to run 30 to 40 devices simultaneously. In addition, the cafeteria would be able to handle 1/3 of the current enrollment in the schools for testing purposes. And the media centers and the libraries will also be important. What's important about where we are today with this bill is we had an opportunity last week in the hearings that Dr. Bias had with the Student Advisory Committee, and students were talking about the inequities in different schools throughout the state due to funding and other reasons. But what we have today with House Bill 41 allows every school in the state to be equitable in the funding and distribution of this bill. And we have an opportunity with the funding that E-Rate is providing. And E-Rate in this past year has added an additional $1 billion into the E-Rate program. So the change from last year when we passed this bill in the House, we were looking at $50 million that was going to be used from the technology fund to fund this. And we were not able to get it out of conference committee last year. And I guess that was a good thing, because now with the additional funding from E-Rate, we're now looking at the local funds, the local match that the school systems are going to need in the neighborhood of $12 million. And these funds are available, Mr. Chairman, I think, through the modification. Would you like to speak to the funding? Let me finish, and I'd like you to address the funding and how we plan to distribute this. But the school systems they've applied, 91 school systems throughout the state have applied for E-Rate. There was a great emphasis last year on making sure that schools applied, and they were counting on the local match. You know, they did not have the funding in order to access the E-Rate money unless they had the local funding. 36 systems did not apply for various reasons. We've reached out to those systems. Many of those had their own systems in place. They had used local funding, and they, would explain to them that you can still apply, and the money that you use locally, when you submit an application to the State Department of Education, you can recoup that money from the local, from your local funds, and you can use it to retire your debt, to upgrade your infrastructure, or for devices. So for those who have no infrastructure in place, that's the first priority. For those who use local funding, they can also submit the same application to the State Department, and once approved and it meets the standards, and I think that's what's important, is that this is standards-based. Every system will be, in their application, will be required to meet the standards that WIRE calls for. And once it does, then the money can be distributed for those that I just mentioned. Also, the technology coordinators will submit a technology plan signed off by the superintendent of the system and the CFO of the school system. So this is an opportunity for our school systems across the state to have the capacity to have wireless infrastructure in every classroom. And once this is done, Alabama can be at the forefront in technology in our classrooms and education. So, Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. I know this is a bill we've discussed for a period of time, and I'm very pleased. A lot of patience, a lot of persistence has brought us to this point, and I, for one, am very pleased with the bill before the committee and the vision as you've articulated. I think it's a very positive vision. With that, I'm glad to open the floor for questions. Representative McMillan.
Mr. Justine, let me call your attention to page 6.
Yes, sir.
Lines 10 and 11, where the appointees are made.
Yes.
And, members are appointed by the Speaker and 2 by the President Pro Tem.
Yes.
Is it your intent that those be legislators or not legislators?
No, those that are appointed by the Speaker and Pro Tem in the Senate will be from the legislative body, and there are others execution of members of the oversight committee that will be from the technology network, the supercomputer authority, and others that have expertise in technology.
I was just questioning, we ought to be more specific about, to the point about speaker shall be members of the House, and to the point about pro tem shall be members of the Senate.
Okay.
Let's continue that discussion, but first, see if there are any other questions.